So together we had 12 months of unprecedented success in 2025, and now we're going to make history and break records with the epic midterm victory that we're going to pull off. It just doesn't seem to happen for people that win the presidency.
You know you've lost in 2026 when Republicans in the United States House of Representatives are openly talking about impeaching the President of the United States if he invades Greenland, as one was quoted today in the press.
What's happening right now isn't Democrats threatening impeachment like they've done before. This is Republicans, members of Trump's own party, publicly warning that if he continues down certain paths, they will vote to impeach him. Congressman Don Bacon from Nebraska just went on record saying that if Trump invades Greenland, he will be immediately impeached and there would be massive Republican support for it. Now think about what that actually means when you step back and look at it. A Republican member of Congress is drawing a line in the sand and telling the Republican president that crossing it means his own party will work to remove him from office. That's not normal political disagreement. That's a fundamental break in party loyalty that shows how concerned some Republicans are becoming about Trump's actions. But real quick, if you want to stay ahead of the headlines, please subscribe, because you might think you are, but aren't. Your subscription actually matters here. That's why we built National Brief Network, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. All right, let's get into what's happening. So Congressman Don Bacon's impeachment warning isn't happening by itself in isolation. It's coming at a moment when Trump is dealing with polling numbers that show the American public turning against him in ways that should concern anyone paying attention to politics. And from what we're seeing, Trump is not handling this news well. He's been very active on social media, making statements that suggest he's feeling the pressure, and now we're watching as even members of his own party start openly discussing the possibility of holding him accountable through impeachment. That's a scenario Trump has been worried about, and it's starting to look more real. Share this video with your friend you know, because the polling data tells us something important about where public opinion is right now. When Americans are asked if Trump is too old to be president, 49% say yes, while only 36% say no. That's a 13-point gap, which is significant in polling. When asked if America can still be called a shining city on the hill, 60% say no, while only 22% say yes. These numbers suggest that many Americans feel the country has moved away from its ideals under current leadership, and that's worth understanding because it shows a disconnect between what Trump says and what many people are experiencing. When people are asked if Trump is changing America for the better or worse, only 34% say for the better. Now, that 34% represents Trump's core support base that tends to stay consistent regardless of circumstances. But everyone else, which includes independents, Democrats, and some Republicans, they're looking at the current situation and concluding things are moving in the wrong direction. That creates a challenging political environment for a president who needs broader support to accomplish his goals. Make sure you're subscribed to National Brief Network, because the polling on Trump's foreign policy actions is particularly important for understanding why Republicans like Bacon are issuing these impeachment warnings. When asked about support for military intervention in different countries, the numbers show consistent opposition. Support for action in Iran is negative 19%, Cuba negative 26%, Colombia negative 29%, Mexico negative 30%. And Greenland, which Trump has been discussing taking control of, that's negative 48%. What this means is that nearly half the country opposes military action in Greenland by a significant margin, which helps explain why a Republican congressman would draw a red line there. The polling on ICE, the Immigration Enforcement Agency, shows favorability at negative 20%. That means more Americans disapprove than approve of how ICE is operating. When people are asked if they support Trump invoking the Insurrection Act to deal with protests against ICE, only 35% say yes, while the majority opposes it. These numbers matter because they show that Trump's approach to immigration enforcement isn't as popular as his rhetoric might suggest. Think about what these numbers mean for Republicans who have to face voters in elections. When the Venezuela military operation gets pulled, 46% of Americans say it was illegal compared to only 31% who say it was legal. That's a 15-point gap, suggesting many people have concerns about the legal basis for that action. When asked if America should take control of other countries by force if it serves our interests, 67% say no, while only 12% say yes. Those are clear numbers showing Americans generally oppose that approach to foreign policy. Our relationships with allied countries are also being affected. In Canada, which has historically been one of America's closest allies, America's favorability is now net negative 50%. That represents a dramatic shift from where that number used to be, and it suggests that Trump's rhetoric and policies toward Canada have significantly damaged how Canadians view the United States. When your closest neighbor and major trading partner has such negative views, that creates real challenges for diplomacy and economic cooperation. Share this with everyone because understanding Trump's response to these developments helps explain the current political situation. Trump has been hosting various events at Mar-a-Lago while many Americans are dealing with economic challenges. He's made personal investments including purchasing between $250,000 and $500,000 in Victoria's Secret bonds. Meanwhile, Americans are facing high foreclosure rates that some analysts say are the highest since the Great Recession. The contrast between Trump's activities and what regular Americans are experiencing is something voters are noticing, and it's reflected in these polling numbers. The situation with Iran illustrates some of the concerns that are driving Republican impeachment warnings. Trump made statements encouraging Iranian protesters to demonstrate, saying he had their backs and would respond strongly if protesters were harmed. Large numbers of Iranians did protest, and according to reports, many were killed by Iranian security forces. However, after some countries including Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Oman expressed concerns about military action against Iran, Trump's response shifted. He posted that it was good news that some protesters wouldn't be sentenced to death and expressed confidence in negotiations. The disconnect between the initial strong rhetoric and the later response has raised questions about consistency in foreign policy messaging. And the Venezuela situation also raises questions that matter for understanding why some Republicans are concerned. Trump ordered military action in Venezuela, and now there are questions about how assets from that country are being handled. Reports suggest that Venezuelan oil revenue isn't going to the U.S. Treasury where it would be subject to normal congressional oversight. Instead, it's reportedly going to an account in Qatar. When people ask why this money wouldn't go through normal Treasury channels where Congress could provide oversight, it raises legitimate questions about transparency and accountability in how these resources are being managed. Think about how this would be viewed if any other president was handling foreign policy this way. If a Democratic president had taken military action in another country and then directed that country's resources to an account in a foreign nation without normal oversight procedures, there would be significant questions from both parties about whether that's appropriate. The fact that it's Trump doing it shouldn't change whether we ask those questions. Accountability should apply regardless of which party controls the White House. The Greenland situation is where Republican impeachment threats are becoming most direct and explicit. Trump has repeatedly discussed the idea of the United States taking control of Greenland. The challenge with this idea is that Greenland is part of Denmark, which is a NATO ally. If the United States were to take military action against Greenland, that would mean taking action against a NATO member country. NATO has a collective defense agreement called Article 5, which means if one member is attacked, all members are supposed to respond. So military action against Greenland could potentially trigger a conflict with our European allies, which would be a fundamental break in the alliance that has maintained European stability for over 70 years. And Republicans like Don Bacon understand the implications of invading a territory that belongs to a NATO ally. It would represent a violation of international law and agreements, it would destroy trust with European partners, and it wouldn't serve any clear American national interests that would justify such dramatic action. That's why Bacon is being very direct in saying that if Trump takes that step, impeachment would follow with support from Republicans. When a member of Congress from the president's own party makes that kind of public statement, it's not casual rhetoric. It's a serious warning about an action that would be seen as so dangerous that even party loyalty wouldn't prevent consequences. Some Republicans who support Trump, like Congressman Randy Fine from Florida, have been discussing the Greenland idea more favorably, talking about strategic reasons why controlling it might benefit American interests. This shows there's not universal agreement within the Republican Party about foreign policy direction, and that disagreement is part of what makes the current situation so significant. The party is showing divisions on major policy questions, which is unusual for a party that generally tries to present unity behind its president. Think about what Trump's presidency has meant for America's relationships around the world. Our polling favorability with allies has declined significantly. Our commitments and statements are being questioned more than they used to be. Our foreign policy appears more focused on Trump's personal priorities than on traditional American interests and alliances. These aren't just abstract concerns. They affect America's ability to work with partners on trade, security, and shared challenges. The polling showing people questioning whether Trump is too old reflects concerns about more than just age. It's connected to questions about judgment, decision-making, and whether current leadership is taking the country in the right direction. When Americans see foreign policy decisions that seem impulsive or unclear, when they see domestic challenges not being addressed, when they see resources being spent on priorities they don't agree with, they start questioning fitness for office. Age might be how the question is framed, but the underlying concern is about whether leadership is effective and appropriate. Make sure you're subscribed because Republicans threatening impeachment represents an important shift in political dynamics. For years, Republicans have provided strong support for Trump through various controversies and challenges. They defended him during 2 previous impeachment proceedings. They backed his policies even when those policies were controversial. But now we're seeing some Republicans willing to draw lines and say certain actions would be unacceptable even from a president of their own party. When Republican members of Congress look at polling showing Trump's declining support, when they see their own constituents expressing concerns about foreign policy, when they see America's reputation declining internationally, they start thinking about their own political futures. If supporting Trump on everything starts looking like it could hurt their re-election chances, some Republicans will make different calculations. And once enough members start thinking that way, Trump loses some of the automatic protection he's counted on. The Greenland issue is a test case for whether Republican impeachment threats are serious or just warnings without follow-through. If Trump were to take action toward Greenland and Republicans didn't pursue impeachment despite these warnings, then the threats would be shown to be empty, and Trump would learn he can continue without real constraints from his own party. But if action were taken and Republicans actually did move forward with impeachment, that would fundamentally change the political dynamics. It would show that there are limits to what Trump can do, and that his own party will hold him accountable when he crosses certain lines. What happens next depends on how Trump responds to these warnings and political pressures. Trump's general pattern has been to continue pursuing his goals despite opposition, believing that determination and persistence will eventually win out. But he's also shown he understands political calculations when the stakes are high enough. If enough Republicans make clear that certain actions would result in losing their support, Trump might decide the political cost is too high. The coming weeks and months will show whether Republican impeachment warnings affect Trump's decision-making on foreign policy, whether he pulls back from discussing taking Greenland, whether he adjusts his approach to military actions abroad, whether he becomes more concerned about maintaining support within his own party. These are the kinds of questions that will determine whether this moment represents a real turning point in Trump's presidency or whether it's just temporary political tension that passes without major changes. This represents a significant challenge for Trump because it's coming from his own party rather than just from political opponents. When Republicans start publicly discussing impeachment as a real possibility for specific actions, that changes the political equation. It means Trump can't just dismiss criticism as partisan opposition. It means he has to consider whether his own party will continue supporting him if he takes certain actions. And it means the protection he's relied on from Republicans might have limits that weren't there before. Stay tuned because this situation continues developing, and understanding how it unfolds matters for understanding American politics more broadly. Whether Republican impeachment threats influence Trump's decisions, whether polling showing declining support affects his approach, whether concerns from allies and questions about foreign policy direction lead to any changes. These are all important questions that will be answered through Trump's actions and his party's responses in the time ahead.